have the great pleasure to be welcoming Sopnendu Mohanty. And for those of you in Singapore, you know him, but also globally, a lot of you might have heard of Sopnendu. Sopnendu is the Chief Fintech Officer of MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore. He is on the Fintech Advisory Board of the IMF, of NUS, of many other organizations. Previously, Sopnendu was at Citi, and he's perhaps one of the individuals who had contributed the most in the development of fintech, not only in Asia, but also globally. So Sopnendu, if you can join, and if we were in a room, I'd say, let's give a very big round of applause to Sopnendu.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's a real pleasure to have you here. And so today you will be talking about the COVID situation, and especially how MAS and how Singapore is helping to support the fintech ecosystem there. But I guess perhaps before, I had two questions, because we have people from all around the world. Two questions about, first, what is happening in Singapore in general with regards to COVID? And the second one, what kind of general measures are there to support the economy?
Good. I don't know, it's a great question, or it's a question I just get overwhelmed. Of course, as you say, the reports are coming out. We are still dealing with this crisis. We're still reporting infections, but we are getting through. I think the government has done a remarkable job in ensuring that we have the right processes, the right framework in place. We hope to get through as soon as possible, but I can see that if you're in Singapore, there's a sense of a lot of appreciation for our health workers, for our people who are just working day and night to keep us safe, and we're very thankful to them. And I'm sure every country has the same thing to thank to the health workers of those countries about remarkable job we're doing, so that we can talk here comfortably, and they're out there dealing with the crisis. So we're very thankful, and we are hoping to see this through as soon as possible. So that's about COVID-19. On the economic side, I think all of us know this is, as we are talking, is unprecedented in many sense. I think we're almost discovering every day something new, something challenging, and it's unfolding as we speak, and every day, every 24 hours, giving us new data point to react to. But in Singapore, we have taken certain measures, and I can talk about specifically what has happened in the fintech sector. But generally speaking, the government and the private players have all come together to respond in the respective sector, incentives, supports in terms of financial support. The banks have stepped up their act so that they get access to people who need cash flow. And more importantly, a lot of the business continuity plan tools are being now used by people to work from home. Most of our offices are running on around 10% capacity on site. The rest are working from home. I think this is the new norm. I think once you come out, it becomes a new standard of way to work. So things are challenging. People are waiting this to ease down and get back to the road and get back to their work, get back to their businesses. But I don't want us in any form feel that we will get away very quickly. It's a long road to recovery, and we have to think differently. Different structures, different processes, different policy making. Everything will change dramatically.
Thanks a lot, Sopnendu. So I think that's a great introduction, to the topic you will be talking about, which is supporting the fintech ecosystem in Singapore. So I'll let you go with the presentation. I'll disappear.
Sure.
And,
yes.
For anyone on the line, if you have any comments, you can put them on the chat. And if you have questions, put them on the Q&A, upvote the questions. And in 20 minutes, 25 minutes, we'll go back and get your questions. Thanks a lot, and up to you, Sopnendu.
Thank you. I know Maria is going to help me to move my slide, but let me start to all of you with a very, very exciting news. We just came from the almost half an hour back or 1 hour back, and we have been working on it for a long period of time, much before COVID-19 was an issue. And a matter of time, I think it's impeccable time that we managed to launch it today. So today, if you go to internet and Google, we have just launched in partnership with the Bank of International Settlement and G20 Secretariat in Saudi Arabia, the first global hackathon of a global scale for all RegTech, SupTech solutioning. This is called the G20 Tech Sprint. It's a complete online global hackathon where the entire process will be running on this online platform. So I'm going to use this platform, CFT's platform, to request anybody from any corner of the world who think they can solve the regulatory challenges, the supervisory challenges for the central bank and supervisor, join this event from wherever you are. This is a complete online hackathon, exciting prizes down the road. There'll be recognition of people who are putting solutions out there. And this truly shows how we can get over COVID-19 crisis by just thinking differently. And I'm pretty sure in a normal environment, it would have a combination of digital and physical and a lot of this complex process. Because of COVID-19, the whole process has been digitally delivered. And I'm pretty sure this will be the global norm as we get out of COVID-19. So best of luck to everybody who wants to solve that problem for regulators and central bank. And it's a great start. I'll say with a lot of optimism, fintechs and startups are here to stay, and we are working very hard to bring such opportunities to the ecosystem so that you can stay relevant and stay hungry for what you're doing. So that's the big announcement. Please go and check. I think I just saw Janos put it on the side. Click it after my talk or after the session. The second thing I want to say thank you to CFT. This is a lovely platform. The way you have designed it, it's hats up to all of you to bring it together. I'm quite impressed. Now, coming back to the COVID-19 slides, which I've just put up for all of you, maybe go to the next slide, Maria. Okay. Don't worry about the slides. If you can't see it, it's okay. I think I'm sure you can get access to the slide. Let me put in a perspective. How did we think about what are the approach to support this ecosystem in this crisis? We spoke to the startups, we spoke to the entrepreneurs, and we found out there are three things we need to solve. First thing, working capital challenge. Almost 67 to 70% of our community responded to us through a quick survey. They're having cash flow challenges to pay their staff, to pay IT cost, and to pay rental bills. So that's the one problem which was brought to us, and we start thinking, what can we do there? The second problem which our startups start facing is doing the normal sales cycle, because pre-COVID-19, they were in hackathons, they were traveling, they were pitching to investors, they were pitching to different clients, everything stopped. So there's almost a breakdown in the sales cycle. So now they're having cash flow problem and they have a sales cycle problem. So that's the problem number two. Problem number three is almost a vicious cycle was building up. The investors started holding back their commitment and the cash started getting stuck. And these companies are not able to get the commitment they already have because investors were preserving cash. So they suddenly see a crunch in their new development work. So the investors are becoming scarce. The resources from investors become very difficult to get through, and they all stopped. They start deferring their commitment. So these are the three problems we had to grapple with. So the first problem regarding working capital, we decided to tackle the problem in three ways. One, we looked at how can we subsidize the salary expense of our startups. So we put certain scheme. You can go and check out the details. So this is a way to ensure that to preserve the talent the startups have, so that they can retain them through the crisis. The second action we took is to support this company's IT expenses. Because of COVID-19, they're going to operate from their home. Whatever IT expenses they will incur as part of the change in their working process, we will find a way to subsidize some of these expenses. So we put a grant out there which they can claim to subsidize some of these expenses. And the third aspect was around rental expenses. And there we did not take a direct action, but there were many of the existing players in the market who were very kind enough to step up to find different ways to to reduce the burden of rental expenses for the community. And these actions were into production a week back, and we hope some of these actions will start making impact on the ground, and we'll see some relief out there. On the second point around breakage of sales cycle, this is where we put a lot of technology thinking. So first thing we did, we opened up our API exchange platform. And if you're not familiar with API exchange platform, this is a platform which is completely built online in terms of processes. It allows fintechs and their prospective client, whether banks in any part of the world, to start doing a sales process, which includes, you can put your profile, you can put your APIs, you can build prototypes, you can do a sales call with your client, and together you can build some test product, and then that can lead to a sales cycle, a sales opportunity. The whole process has been automated and has been put into this platform, and we are offering everybody in Singapore-based fintech a free access for next 6 months. So that gets them an opportunity to get straight into the platform and start doing the sales wherever they left. So they can call their client and start doing the existing engagement by just connecting through this Apex platform. We also got support from a lot of cloud providers who put some cloud credit. We also got insurers to come and help and put some support scheme for our startups for the insurance premium coverages. So I think so we started seeing the market coming and rallying behind our startups and trying to do whatever they could do from their side to relieve some of the burden. And the third aspect is around on the sales cycle is how to support business growth. So here is an interesting action we took. What we did, we put together a scheme which says as follows, that if you are a startup and you are based in Singapore and you are in Apex platform and you are registered with our FinTech Association, then you can go and pitch your solution to a small FI. Definition of small FI is less than 200 employees. And if they take your digital tool, we can, I think we can subsidize the expense up to 120,000 Singapore dollar. And this is an interesting way because this allowed the second leg of the sales process, which is the incentive to sell and both for the seller side and the buyer side to buy. So there's a bit of pot of money out there which they can use to accelerate the digitalization of the financial industry, and fintechs can help that process and claim some of the grant subsidy which comes out of it. And also we took another interesting play by which we are telling now the startups that if your employees are primarily going to work from home and you are burning cash to pay the salary, here's another interesting way to reduce your cash burden. And we are telling, if you are going to take a training, an online training, for every 1 hour of your employee's training, we are going to give a $15 salary subsidy. So for example, if I am a startup employee and my startup allows me to go to CFTE AI training, which I believe is an 8-hour online training, and for every hour I spend in CFTE training to get an AI certificate, I will get a $15 salary subsidy on behalf of my employee who is getting trained by CFTE. So we started putting through this mixture of incentive to improve your skill set, to accelerate your sales process, and we kind of mixed it so that we get 2 outcomes. We help the companies to preserve themselves to the crisis, and at the same time they can actually change some of their construct by upgrading their skill set and getting more digital in that whole process of shift of thinking how to do business in the new world of post COVID-19. So that's essentially are the big actions on the cash flow and the sales side. And to end this one, the third pillar is around investment. I know we has posted many articles on LinkedIn, and he expressed some of his frustration on the bank loans. So we took an interest while we have a similar offer in Singapore, but we took an interesting, I'll say, an interesting differential approach to this. Thanks to some very generous investors in this part of the world, we started a fund called, in partnership with AMTD, an AMTD ASEAN Solidarity Fund. And this fund is a $50 million fund, which is created if you're an Apex platform member and if you are doing business in ASEAN and you can demonstrate that, you can access this fund, which is a short-term, can be a short-term debt, a convertible debt, or it can be equity, and the ticket size can go from $50,000 to $100,000 to 2.5, whatever amount you're looking to get by this crisis. So we put, and also we had Razer here, who also put together $50 million emergency fund. So a lot of private players came into the space to offer short-term and small ticket support so that a startup can access this capital to get by the next 6 months. So that's the big, I'll say the big response we had to COVID-19 till now. Having said that, we do believe we got to also constantly evolve, because we are discovering new ways, new challenges. We are going to fine-tune our policies. We are going to fine-tune our incentive schemes, and we are going to rely a lot on the private participant to help to get over these challenges. So next slide. I just, because I may have spoken ahead of the slide. Can you get to the next slide? I think you can skip it. I spoke about it. Yes, the $15 training slide, the wage subsidy, I spoke about it. And next, this is the training subsidy, because again, to repeat this slide, we personally believe I think it's a very clever way to provide subsidy, because it not only gets you an outcome of a better skilled workforce, because post COVID-19, one of the biggest challenge we'll see is the talent demand, which will be completely of different nature, because the kind of talent you need to do post COVID-19 needs a very different skill set. So having an opportunity to use to upgrade your skill during this period is definitely a good strategy to have, so that your workforce is ready for the challenge post COVID-19. Next slide. Again, this I spoke about access to the Apex platform. Next slide. This is the insurance and the bank credit, which is being offered by the bank to the SMEs. They can tap to that for loans. Okay, so I missed one thing. So one of the tools we also put together is to do a self-assessment. And one of the challenges we have today, especially for the fintech world, is that their solutions sometimes don't match up to the rigor of outsourcing guidelines of a lot of our financial institutions. And if you are a fintech, you would understand this, because the banks, when they buy solution from any tech company, they put you through a very draconian procurement cycle, and it also has some regulatory compliance requirement. So we have put together a self-assessment tool, which allows, it's free, and it allows our fintechs to go and do a self-assessment, so they can see the gap and quickly fix it, and they can tap onto the digital acceleration grant we put together for them to do sales to the FIs. Next. I think this is the end of the slide. Oh, so this is okay. It's all the industry support. Next. This is an event we did last week called a Deal Friday. This is the event we use typically to get the startups to pitch to the investors. And we had a great deal day last week. I was told we had close to 300 plus, I don't know, maybe that's the number, participant in that whole deal day program, and we'll continue to do it to even in COVID-19 situation to raise capital for the startups. So next. Okay, so that's I think this is the last slide. So these are the steps we have taken to respond to COVID-19. And let me end my presentation by saying a few things. There are two kind of fintechs in this space. There's a B2C fintech and a B2B fintech. B2C fintechs are the fintechs who are providing financial services directly to customer. They're licensed, sometimes depend on where they're operating, not licensed. This set of companies will face a certain unique challenges. What is the challenge? There are a lot of demand for P2P lending platforms, lending out short-term unsecured loan. But the problem is the balance sheet is also getting tighter because investors are holding back their commitment to the balance sheet of P2P lender. So there's a supply and demand gap in the B2C sector. And we hope that during this next 6 months, if they can withstand, and they're likely to grow big time post COVID-19, because if they can see themselves through this crisis, they're going to be stronger as they come out. The B2B fintechs have an interesting challenge. If you are a B2B fintech, basically a fintech which provides solution to institutions, then if you're a mature product, you will see a remarkable growth during COVID-19. In fact, you will be the strongest fintech in this COVID-19 because you have a digital product which can be, if it can be deployed very fast, FIs are going to use you. I think you have a high chance of success. This is your moment. Go and use it. But if you're a B2B and a very early stage and you are just building a new idea, building a new product, you may see the biggest impact in COVID-19 when it comes to fintech. So if you're part of that group, find a way to keep yourself to survive, and whatever you can do to preserve your cash, do, because you are the most challenged in this environment to see yourself through this crisis. And post COVID-19, I think anybody survives will have a remarkable time. And I was told, and this is a number I just read a report that the top 50 fintech valued in total $500 billion will see a valuation drop of 10 to 20% of $100 billion. And this is during the crisis. But if they come out strong, I think they're going to not only get to the original valuation, they may shoot beyond that. So best of luck, survive the crisis, preserve your talent, use as much opportunity your respective jurisdictions are giving you in terms of support, and you will come stronger. So I'm sure I'm supposed to take some questions, right?
Thanks a lot, Sopnendu. That was very, very insightful. Can you hear me? Because for some reason, I couldn't hear you for 10 seconds anymore.
I can hear you.
I can hear you again. That's very good. No, thanks a lot. I think that was a great way, to finish that. And we'll jump into the questions. There's quite a lot of questions, actually. So we'll start, just from the top, and then we'll try to see, how much we can go through them. The first one is you talked, could you give more information about the API platform you mentioned, and how does it help for sales?
So, okay, I think my team can put the link on the side. So click on that. If anybody, can somebody put that link, the API exchange platform? We can do a live quick click if you want to. Yes, Rebecca from Singapore had just put that link. Click on it, and you will land on a beautiful page, and it tells exactly what Epix does for you. It does 4 things. It allows you to build your profile. Second, it allows you to put your APIs so people can test it out. Third, we have a developer sandbox, which allows you to build prototype with the prospective client of yours by inviting them to the sandbox. And fourth, you have access to investors, and if you want to raise capital.
Okay, great, very good. So I think you all have the link. So just click on the link and go there. And the second part of the question, which is, how can it help for sales?
So the way it helps to sell, because today, for example, you're a startup in London and you want to sell to somebody in Philippines. Okay, so what you can do, you get yourself to Apex platform, build your portfolio, build your expose your APIs, build your data sandbox, call up your potential client in Philippines or Thailand and tell, come to Apex, I will show you my product, and we can do an interactive demo or prototype building through Apex platform. So whatever the client in Philippines or Thailand don't have to meet you physically to see your product. The whole interaction can be digitally done through the platform.
Okay, very good. So the next question, I am interested in fintech and I will be a qualified chartered accountant in June 2020. Could you demonstrate some steps to get into the fintech sector? What are the courses I need to do to get into fintech?
Oh, that is your domain. You better answer this question.
So I would say first, it depends on where you are. I think everywhere, there are a lot of very good online courses. In the CFTE, we have online courses in fintech, artificial intelligence, open banking. So if you go to cfte.education, you'd see a lot of them. There are other great universities that do this. Oxford, Hong Kong University, which we help to do. But there's a lot of courses in fintech. I think the most important is start. I think there's a lot of things out there, but the most important step is to start. I would say also if you're in Singapore, then I think you're very lucky because in Singapore you have IBF, you have SSG, so you have those entities that help to get not only great courses but great subsidies in the courses, including some of those that you mentioned. So I would say go to cft.education for fintech courses, but there are a lot of other great courses out there. Online courses, of course, is the easiest way to start in today's world. The next part is, how about the moral hazard issue? That's a good question. With all this support for startups during a crisis, ups and downs are part of life and business. So we don't want people expecting a handout every time there's a downturn.
Yes, I think absolutely spot on. I think we believe strongly that the market forces will decide the survivability of these fintechs. What we are trying to do, let me take a step back. We are putting together very carefully crafted support. And this support doesn't mean that you're going to give money to people who may not be deserving. Because if you carefully look at all the incentive, it is backed by a certain constraint. And each constraint has its own qualitative criteria. But if you want to access, for example, if you want to access the digital acceleration grant, you must be in Apex with a valid product. You must have a FI who's willing to buy a product. The money comes if you do a certain action and you get a certain response. So everything is linked to an action and to a delivery. So it's not a free money without any purpose, without any proof. This is all linked to certain degree of certain gates of quality and certain certain bar to jump above. We do expect 20-30%. We don't know. We'll just can survive this crisis, which I think is okay to expect. That's why I tried to bucket into three categories. There's a B2C, B2B, mature product, early stage, and each of them will see a different struggle. And each of them will have a different struggle in terms of negotiating their liquidity need. If I'm Series B and above, I'm in a better position to negotiate for a debt. But if I'm B and below the early stage, I may end up in liquidity, maybe diluting my equity, and I may end up in getting cash in expense of equity give up. So there are different permutation and combination which will drive this thing. But point on, I think market will drive the outcome. We do our best by putting together the right support system and let the best survive, or let who survives, who doesn't survive.
That's a very fair point. What I would suggest that let's take 3 more questions. So if there are questions you really would want to ask Sopnendu, upvote the question, and we'll take the 3 that have the most upvotes. The next one is SMEs. So SMEs need cash to support the current lack of finance and growth. In your opinion, what are the best way to give companies money? I said disintermediate banks. I don't know if it means that it has to go through banks or if there's some other ways.
Well, I think the and you also commented a lot that banks are getting support from the government to extend loans in a I'll say in the crisis condition. When you talk SME, it's quite general in statement. Sometimes SME can be very confusing. If I'm running a mom and pop shop or if I'm running a small factory, I'm an SME. I have a regular income and I have a disruption. I go to a bank and they give me a loan based on certain conditions. But here we are talking of startups who don't have a regular income. They're still yet to get a client. They're still in the middle of a product development, and their cash flows are very irregular. They're still in the 3 to 4 years from the day they are born. So a very different bucket. So this SMEs of startups cannot be mixed with the general definition of SME. And for a bank to extend loan equally in the equal length to both is unfair expectation. So if you are a startup, if you're and you are developing a product, I personally believe your first port of call should be an investor willing to lend some kind of short-term liquidity. And no harm in trying a bank loan if you have got a good revenue book, a steady income stream. Maybe they'll be happy to give you money. So that's my view. You can add your views too, because you're also seeing a lot of different ways of extending credit during this crisis in London.
Yes, I think he just disconnected. So I'll take the next two questions for you. What kind of impact have you seen so far with the measures you guys implemented?
Very early stage, but the salary subsidies have, because it's the auto credit, I think it has started kicking in. I can see a lot of traffic of people soliciting their solutions to the banks because they believe if they get a client, they can get an offsetting grant. So we can see some activity triggering out because of this incentive. I can see a traffic in the Apex platform. People are registering themselves. And so the early trends are encouraging, but I think we've got to see another 2-3 weeks to see where it lands. Again, Janos, as I said, nobody knows what to expect in next 1 week. So we are constantly looking at data, bottoms-up approach, no top-down. We get feedback directly from the startup, and we are trying to fine-tune our thinking as we get better data and better understanding of the situation.
Okay, and maybe a very last one, which I think is more human. Obviously, there's social distancing or physical distancing, depending on how you want to say it. How is it to best network in this environment? What have you seen that work, tips and tricks to be able to put people together in a time when people are not allowed to essentially interact in the way they used to?
I think the best example is what we are doing now. I think there are 2 or 3 evolving. I personally think that productivity has increased somehow. Staying at home, you travel less, you do less meeting, but you are working very purposefully. You are learning a lot. I think using digital tools, you can get into skills development because there's a great opportunity to upgrade your skill. But using your digital tools, your Zoom and your tools to interact is perhaps the way to go. I think use of cloud will become far more mainstream now. Use of services, which is, for example, accounting. Now, a lot of good accounting startups are becoming a hot demand. So today, you can buy through an API, you can get a complete accounting services, completely automate your accounting works of a firm by using a cloud-based accounting software services. So you will see a lot of these tools going to replace your operational inefficiencies, going to replace your sales strategy. These video conferencing tools will replace your customer soliciting, and platform like this, what you have will increase our networking opportunity to talk and find find from each other what is the next business opportunity stands in front of us. So more use of tools. And after COVID-19, I don't think we'll go back to the old world. We'll stay somewhere in between. Think about Janos today. Today in Singapore, almost every institution are running on 10% of staff on site. Things are running fine. So when things go to normal, why you think you'll get back to 90 or 99% of staff on site? Maybe good time to rethink. And other thing, Janos, I was talking today afternoon, talent. And a lot of talents can now, you can expand your talent bench by allowing people to work from home. And this becomes a new way of expanding your talent base. So interesting time.
No, I agree. Also, I think on the digital tools like accounting, I think I've heard that MAS has a capacity where if you want to use a digital tool, this will be subsidized as a cost.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So then, do you want to say one more thing?
I know. I want to thank all of you. Stay connected. I'm sure collectively you can get through. But once again, Janos, I must thank CFTE for bringing this platform. This is a lovely platform, and we hope this becomes something we should all get used to.
No, great that we're using it. I'm really happy.
So best of luck, and stay connected. We can always come back and discuss as things evolve, good or bad.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Sopnendu. Take care, everyone.
Cheers.
Please enjoy working after.